Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Take It to the Bank. My name is Stefanie Hammond, and I am one of the head nerds here at Enable that focuses on all things growth and sales and marketing related. The goal of these coaching videos is to provide bite-sized sales and marketing advice, bite-sized guidance that you can immediately incorporate into your MSP that will hopefully pay off with either new leads or new signed contracts, contract clients for you at the end of the day. We are continuing our multi-part training series focused on helping MSPs develop a marketing operating system for their MSP. I'm once again being joined by industry MSP marketing experts, Dave Sutton, Mark Copeman from Wingman. So thank you once again, gentlemen. And because we deal with MSPs every day, and MSPs that we're dealing with, especially with Dave and Mark, they're struggling with their marketing. They're struggling with their prospecting. They're struggling with finding new leads, quality leads for their MSP, and struggling with their sales processes so they can convert those leads into new signed contracts at the end. So very excited to be able to continue this video series with these very so smart gentlemen, helping MSPs improve their marketing and sales know-how and improve outcomes for MSPs when it comes to their marketing and sales efforts. So in today's episode, and I'm just going to bring up once again our screen that shows kind of our little jigsaw puzzle that we've been talking about lately. So in today's episode, we are continuing that deep dive into the 8 different jigsaw puzzle pieces that MSPs should be focusing on to help them gain, real traction when it comes to their marketing efforts. We're almost near the end. We're going to be talking about our 7th jigsaw puzzle piece out of 8 that contributes to an MSP's marketing success. And that is, how do you get to be recommended? How should MSPs be working? What activities should they be doing to turn their clients into advocates for their MSP so they can get themselves recommended to other quality businesses? So we're using marketing and advocacy to help grow your MSP. So Dave, Mark, let's start off. How should MSPs be designing their client success programs, or what term you guys give it, to kind of foster that advocacy within their client base?
So I'm going to start, if I may, Dave, because I'm going to talk a bit about it's sort of linked to my personal history, something I'm really still quite passionate about, and I think you can only have advocacy, and you can only encourage that client success and people to recommend you if you are already doing a good job. So if you know those clients who think you are awesome. So sometimes it's hard to tell. And I think understanding that is the first part of this particular jigsaw piece. It's really having a really good understanding of those who are just naturally likely to recommend you. And of course, the best way to do that, you've got to have those metrics there. And this is where the whole concept of CSAT starts to come in, which you can get in a variety of different ways. So customer satisfaction, the most dangerous customers are the ones that you just don't know anything about, and you're assuming that they're happy. So the quiet ones are the dangerous ones, I think it's fair to say. So it's your job as an MSP owner, as an MSP in general, to be able to have a handle on how people are thinking, not to guess it, but to actually know it. And of course, there are all sorts of mechanisms. That's an entire episode on its own, and I'm just going to keep this super, super short. One of them is via that sort of face-to-face QBR, which perhaps Dave's probably got more experience on than I have. But there's a couple of areas I'll just touch on very quickly. So the first one is the obvious place to measure this type of metric would be within tickets. Of course, how did we do answering your ticket today, so you can get a picture of how end users in any particular customer are feeling about you as a business. And I think that's still today a perfectly acceptable method, but you still have to be careful not to over survey, and you get survey blindness. If you've got people that are having, 10 tickets a week, they're not going to give you feedback 10 times. They're just not. It's the equivalent to, I don't know how many Amazon deliveries we get here every week in this house. None of them are anything to do with me, as I'm sure you can imagine. But every single time I get asked, how was the delivery? Well, guess what? It was awesome. It always is. It turned up on time. But I'm not going to keep telling you. So just be careful not to over survey. But the second angle I would recommend, something which I've a lot of experience in previous lives, is to actually ask how are you feeling about our service, perhaps on a monthly or bi-monthly basis, depending on the engagement you have with that particular customer, because it's sort of an all-encompassing thing. Just how are you feeling, which is a very hard thing to measure unless you actually ask. There's no graphs inside a business that can show you that necessarily, but ask how people are feeling. And there's a whole variety of mechanisms for doing that, which I will not go through now. But if you can get a handle on that, that is a really, really powerful tool. And then you can start to identify the advocates within your organization.
Agreed. Anything to add there, Dave?
Yeah, I was going to say kind of similar to sales, really, or the marketing piece, full stop. It's good to map out a journey, map out a series of client success sort of touch points or milestones that you've got that you can include in your sales process and share with them in a proposal to say, we will onboard you and we will take you through these various onboarding steps. So you can make them feel as though you've got a structured, orderly process. You've got the t-shirt because you know this works. You've done it again and again. But look beyond that. Show them, maybe 3 months, 6 months. What is the engagement going to look like? Set the expectation. I know most MSPs say they struggle to get clients in the room. They don't want to talk to them because they don't want a service review. They don't want to talk about tickets. They don't want to talk about SLAs because they don't care about that stuff because it's fine. You're doing your job. But you want to try and get them to realize you need to be in the room so you can talk to them about their business. So if you can map that out from day one with them to say, we will come and see you again at 3 months, 6 months, because we've got a proven process of, reviewing the implementation of things that we've done and look at its impacts and see how we can improve it. So there's an infinity symbol or a kind of an oval shape or something of a journey that you take people through, and even be so bold as to put something after maybe 6 months, 9 months, 12 months to say, we want to do a case study about our engagement with you at that point. Our goal is we are so confident in our service. After you've been with us for 6 months, you will be happy to go on and give us a 5-star Google review or do a video testimonial. If you're that confident in your service that you're happy to do that, I would suggest be bold and say, that's the journey we want to take you on. Set the expectation that you're going to knock their socks off, that they will be happy enough to go and do a testimonial for you. Pre-program the fact that you're going to turn them into an advocate and leverage that relationship to help you get recommendations. And with existing clients, it's a little harder to put that in place, but lean on those you've got strongest relationships with, as Mark said, and try and encourage them to give reviews. Invite them in as though they're part of a special group of clients or something that can have an influence on the future development of your service, and maybe tell them you're looking to deploy something like that. They may have been a client for 6 years, but say, in that time, I'd like to think we've knocked your socks off. We haven't ever asked you for a review. Would you be so kind enough to do one? And then we're thinking about putting this program in place when we get new clients in the door. What do you think? That can be a great way of engaging them and helping them to have an influence on how you shape the it's almost like soft skills when you're looking at hiring people, the whole emotional part. It's about having that as a separate sort of process that you take clients through, layered on top of the very technical things, all the black and white zeros and ones stuff that you need to do.
Wonderful. And so this episode is all around being recommended. So client success programs, one thing, referral programs is another. So how do you advise MSPs go about designing referral programs so that it isn't, because like MSPs love referrals. A lot of them is ad hoc. You don't know when you are getting your next referral from a client. So how can an MSP more systemize this, make a process around that?
I've got some thoughts, Dave. Is there anything specific you wanted to start with? I can chime in. There's a few things I want to mention.
Yeah, just one consideration to help with that, maybe at the sort of the lowest level of activity. Probably the most direct is, here's $100 Amazon voucher for you to make a recommendation. And I don't think that works. I think most decent clients are going to make a referral when the time is right, when someone
You don't need to be
asks.
bribed.
Yeah, people will just do the right thing. So I don't think it makes sense to incentivize, sorry, get my tongue in. But what perhaps does make sense is to consider marketing to your existing clients fairly regularly, not only to help with that white space and everything we've said in previous videos, but also think about the team members within your client's business that you support. At some point, they're going to leave and move on. And you want them to take you with them when they move to their new business. You know, if you've got an office manager, finance manager, they move to a new firm and they find IT problems, they're going to think about you guys. Oh yeah, we used to use a firm at my previous employer. So if you keep up the level of communication with those employees as well, help them in their job, help them to be more productive, and make them look good to their bosses by how efficient they are and how well they use technology. So you can, again, this is a long game. This is not predictable in any way, shape or form, but it will help you to perpetuate those referrals by doing the right thing and just keeping up the comms with people that you may otherwise not think about in the sphere of marketing activity.
There's a couple of things I'll throw in here. I still see quite regularly the idea of a referral program publicly stated on an MSP's website, and it honestly it just turns my stomach a little bit. It's just not the right thing to do. I mean, fair enough if it's a hidden link and you do want to track it in some way. And maybe pay out. I mean, I'm personally with Dave. I saw you shaking your head as well, Stephanie, around the idea of incentivizing people. What I would say, however, and that we certainly do this within our business, if we get a referral and it all works out, we'll send them something really nice to say thank you.
Yeah, that's
that unexpected thing I think is so much more welcomed than the $200 Amazon voucher sort of thing. I don't think it creates that sort of impetus in people to go and do something along those lines. People will refer you if they are delighted by your service. And why will they do it? Because it makes them look good as well. So it's helping a friend out, it's helping a colleague out, but at the end of the day, it makes them look good. And if you don't have that relationship with that individual, there's no way in the world that they'll refer on. So that's the first thing I'd mention. And I think the second thing is, in terms of formalizing these sorts of programs, first of all, just ask when the time is right. Just ask, would you mind? And people, in the same way, asking for reviews are all too happy to help if you've just done them a good job. So there's a timing thing at play here. And here's one very specific tactic, which I often recommend actually for getting reviews. But actually, I think it would kind of work alongside referrals as well. And that's actually to involve your help desk team. It's to involve your service desk.
Smart.
And to actually train them, educate them. When they receive something back from an end user saying words to the effect of how awesome your business is because you've just, saved them hours, or you've just fixed a really, really tricky problem. And when they write back and say you're awesome, train that technician and engineer not to just smile slightly and then close the ticket. That there is marketing and potentially revenue gold. So train them instead when they see a comment like that, which is, like this shining light, to snip it out, send it to whoever, and get them to act on it. So it might be asking someone to say, hey, this is awesome. Would you mind pasting this as a Google review? Or actually, you maybe do that, but just say, hey, look, by the way, we're on the lookout for a couple of new clients over the next 6 months. Anyone that is when to strike, because timing is right.
Right.
And that jolts something in my memory back to when we spoke about sort of nurturing and bringing in LinkedIn and looking at audiences and trying to bridge connections. That tactic, Mark, that you shared there is probably one where you can be very specific on LinkedIn. If you're looking at your golden list, this warm 250 or whatever it is that we've spoken about before, a list of firms that you really want to do business with, look at your existing connections. If you've got a healthy connection base among your clients or other business associates, people you network with, see who has a second degree or if you have a second degree connection, into a firm where one of your connections has a first degree connection, ask them then to make a direct referral. Do you know Fred at that particular company? Would you by chance make an introduction so I can connect with him? And there's a great way then of you having self-perpetuating those referrals by just asking somebody to link you up with someone that they know. Of course, chances are it may be a random connection that they don't actually know the person. But if you don't ask, you don't know. So that's worthwhile a push. And one other thing that maybe could be semi-systemized in a sort of programmatic way is to think about other business associates you have that are selling into a similar customer base and try and create referrals between you. So if you have perhaps an association with, a legal practice or an accounting firm or someone else that's providing cleaning services or some kind of, office type based services that are bought and sold in the same way as the MSP services are. And if you can collaborate on events, so you find a particular theme, for example, of content that you're going to do newsletters about or webinars or an in-person event or something, you can then help promote that to each other's customer base, and again try and encourage those referrals between you where you have relationships already with pools of clients. So that's something else that I would consider that you can get a bit more prescriptive with, particularly if you think about law firms or accountants that have got quite healthy pools of loyal clients over a number of years, in the same way that MSPs have. Just try and leverage that to open the door into a new pool of folks.
Yeah.
I'll say one
great
last thing,
idea.
Stephanie, on this. It's a very simple, I'm going to say warning or suggestion. Don't just suddenly email 200 customers or people on your list and go, anyone you can refer us to type thing. It's just like, oh no, that's just soul destroying. This is a personal thing again. It's about timing and it's about being personal and then following up with thank yous as well, or people will never do it again.
Yeah. And like, talking about timing, and we also talked about kind of the QBR, the quarterly business review. I know of an MSP over here in North America, and what she does is before she goes into every QBR, she looks at LinkedIn and she looks at her connections, kind of what you were talking about, Dave, and she finds those. You called it golden. We also talked about Dream 100 list, but if there were clients on those Dream 100 that she doesn't have, she'll print off the profiles and she'll bring them to her QBR. And at the end of the QBR, if it was a good QBR, because talking about timing, she'll say, hey, I'm really looking to connect with other business owners in the industry. Do you happen to know any of these people? So she will show them the profiles, because if you ask someone, they may not be able to come up with a name off the top of their head. But she goes, by just bringing like 3 or 4 different profiles that I printed off with their faces, oftentimes she was that, they'll say, oh yeah, I know so-and-so. And then it kind of starts the ball rolling.
I love
from
that. Did
there.
she used to be a detective by any chance?
No, she wasn't.
Love that. I think that's a great idea. Wonderful.
Well, I think it just ties in what you were saying on timing and what Dave was saying on LinkedIn. And then she kind of took the two together because she is we can talk about QBRs all day long. I'm passionate about them, but it's really, going to what you were saying, Dave, it's the communication, keeping that proper cadence, setting the expectation that this is how we run our business. You can expect to hear from us. So I think setting those expectations, those are all, I think, really valuable comments that you gentlemen have made. And so wonderful. All right. So again, thank you for helping MSPs watching today, help, turn those clients into advocates for their MSP, different ideas, different strategies there. In our next episode, we're going to be moving on to discuss, that final jigsaw puzzle piece that makes up an MSP's marketing operating system. And that is, how should MSPs continue evolving? So how should they be evolving their businesses so that they're not just scaling smartly, but they're also scaling profitably as well? And so we are going to be talking about workflow and processes and system enhancements, and a lot of other topics on how to be evolving. So hopefully you can join us in that final jigsaw puzzle piece conversation on building your MSP's marketing operating system on Tech It to the Bank.